Howdy folks, and welcome to the video for the Tier 7 Pan-European Premium Battleship, the Lugdunum. Lugdunum? Lugdunum? It's a bit of an odd name. Doesn't exactly sound amazingly imposing. And actually it's kind of fitting because it's a bit of an odd ship. The Lugdunum is a bit of an odd duck. I'm not going to say it's a bad ship, but it's odd. I've only played a couple of games in Lugdunum. It was one of these ships that was on the way to something else. I think it was a reward for one of the battle passes at one point, which means to say that it's one of those ships that you didn't intend to buy. You just got it on the way to something else, which is always kind of an interesting, just psychological thing. You're like, oh, sure, I guess. Yeah, why not? A Tier 7 Pan-European battleship with some moderately anemic looking AP, and I guess it's okayishly fast for its tier, and some really, really terrible turret traverse as you see me out turning my guns. I do not need ships to have amazing turret traverse, but when it gets so bad that you're waiting for the guns to catch up with a turn, that's not bueno. However, this ship does have some advantages, and you see one right there. The HE is really, really good, in my opinion. Partially because you get 16 shells every 25 seconds. So, you know that saying, quantity has a quality of its own. Well, that's the Lugdunum. Each individual shell, not super amazing. We're looking at 4100 alpha, 26% fire chance. But you fire 16 of them every 25 seconds. That means that your shells are good against basically every target in the game. They pan, I think, 57 millimeters, so they're good against cruisers, even heavy cruisers. They're great against destroyers. They're even good against battleships, especially ones with large superstructures. You know, obviously, you want to switch to the AP when you get some broadside targets, battleships at short range, that kind of thing. I read a bunch of reviews as you see me take a bead on this Minikaze. I think we're going to get a little video hiccup here at some point because, yeah, my system had a little bit of a moment there. But anyway, I hit the Minikaze with like 3 shells, did a ton of damage. Yeah, this game's already trending towards a blowout. And all we did was 15,000 damage. But I mean, you know, we played our part, did some damage on that Minikaze. Yeah, so what is the Lugdunum? It's an odd duck. It's got some serious flaws. The armor is just okay. The HP pool is not amazing. The pen on the AP shells is not amazing. You don't get anything else. You know, you don't get torpedoes or hydro or radar or anything fancy. It's kind of just a floating platform for 16 guns that fire every 25 seconds. And maybe that's good enough. It does make the ship reasonably flexible because HE is just such a more flexible ammo type. And usually you pay the price for that with it just not being very good. But in this case, again, it's largely because you get 16 shells. That's really good stuff. I spec'd this ship wrong. I read some reviews of it, and people said to put points into the secondaries, which I think they're crazy because even if you do, they only go out to a maximum of 8 kilometers, 7.9 actually. And yes, they are very good, but like, do they understand that a tier 7 ship is going to be in games against tier 9 opponents, and secondaries that only go to 7.9 kilometers are just not that useful? Like, I just don't believe that that's the way to play this ship. But, you know, hey, I mean, I could be wrong. So I ended up speccing this with aiming to improve the dispersion, and it definitely does help. But what I should have specced into, among other things, is definitely turret traverse, as well as, what was the other thing? There was something else that escaped me. I don't know. It'll come to me in a second. Definitely turret traverse. You're going to see the AP here. I'm a little underwhelmed. I mean, this is a fairly light cruiser, and I'm at very close range. And granted, the angle is not perfect, but I don't know. I was looking for a little more there. I think I eventually switched back to the HE because it's just not. Yeah, it's just not doing it for me. Do get to see a little bit of that secondary action, which is cool. Light some fires, do 900 damage. I mean, it definitely would help in a brawl against another battleship, no question about it. But I just don't see it being generally useful enough. I'd rather have aiming or turret traverse on these guns. So yeah, as always, the question, do I think the Lugdunum is a good ship? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think it's an interesting ship. I think it's a different play style for battleship. It's not usually the way I play because I'm so into AP when it comes to battleships. I love that feeling of, hitting the broadside and getting those amazing citadels. But I mean, this is definitely a very valid play style. I do like firing 16 shells at once. I like the Plymouth for that reason. There's something fun about clicking the button, having 16 shells come out. The turret traverse is a little frustrating. I don't think the secondaries are worth it just because once you get to tier 7, you need more range to really make that work. But you get pretty good heals and you get 5 of them, which is pretty great. So yeah, I mean, in some ways there's not that much to say. It's just a battleship that's seems to be built a little bit more around HE, which I guess is appropriate, for the European line. This game almost kind of doesn't really showcase it because it's such a blowout. But we are, never fear, if you enjoy watching aircraft carriers go down, we're gonna get some damage in on that Ranger over there. Can't remember if we get the kill. I don't think we do, but we're definitely going to get some good damage in on him. I guess the other thing to say about the guns, the angles aren't really terribly good. They're not very exciting. As we help out here on this man, we don't get the kill, but we did some good damage to him. I think Battleship HE can be underrated, especially against destroyers. I think in general, battleships just don't fire their guns often enough at destroyers. I also probably could have benefited from, oh my God, what's the name of the skill that lets you switch between HE and AP faster? The name is escaping me, but that I think would be helpful on this ship. On a lot of ships, I don't tend to take it. I put my 21-point special captain on this battleship, and it's spec'd for a more normal battleship, and I don't usually take that skill because I just don't switch that much between AP and HE. I tend to just fire AP, but on this ship, I don't think that's the way to play it. I think you should switch back and forth. Let's see how this HE does against the lightest armored ship in the game. How are we going to do? 3 shells, 4,000 damage. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Could be worse, could be worse. Especially with the lower reload. That's not bad for HE. That wasn't a full salvo either. Oh, right, the turret angles. I forgot to mention that. They're not good. They're bad. You have to show an uncomfortable amount of broadside. In particular, I was mentioning in the Dunkirk that ship, what was that, 5100? No, not bad. That the Dunkirk has the stepped guns, so it can fire both of the front turrets directly over the forward bow. This does not have that, which means that if you're dead straight on with an enemy ship, you can literally only fire one of your turrets, the very front one. The second one can't fire over the first. 9,200 damage in a fire. That's not so bad. I think that's pretty good for tier 7 HE. I definitely could see in a tier 9 game playing this battleship almost like a HE spamming cruiser, just hanging out behind islands and trying to fire at targets. You definitely would not want to play it as a brawler in that kind of game. That's another reason why I didn't feel like speccing into the secondaries, because I just don't think this ship has the armor and the hit points to hold up to that kind of thing. They're not, the secondaries are just, secondaries in general are a bit of a trap. a bit of a red herring. But it's specifically in this ship, I just don't think they're worth it. I would just spec into firing HE shells out of the main turrets, and I probably would take turret traverse, because 43 seconds for a 180-degree turn is pretty bad. Obviously, this game's a victory. I don't think we're going to get any more damage in it. Feel free to kind of fast forward to the end. But, 62,000 damage and 1 kill for a tier 7 battleship in a top tier game. This was a tier 5 through 7 game. That's not bad. Remember, when it's lower tiers, there's just not as much HP to go around. The HP of the ships drops, but then also they don't get as many heals. Also, there were, 3 destroyers and a sub on the other team. Is that what I'm seeing here? Or maybe it's just 4 destroyers. I have 4 destroyers on the other team, including a Maestro. I played that destroyer recently and had actually a really good time in it. A surprisingly good destroyer. And of course, the Kamikaze is always a winner. Always a good choice. The Mayhan and the Visby, they are what they are. Blind firing on this submarine. So should you pick up the Lugdunum? I mean, I think it's an above average tier 7 premium, just in terms of like providing something different and the fun factor of firing those 16 shells. I don't think you're going to find it to be an amazing ship. I think there's better tier 7s. I think if you're really interested in brawling, then probably the Scharnhorst is a better choice. And if you just want a general purpose battleship, I would say even maybe the Yukon is a better option. But certainly I didn't think the Lugdunum was bad. I had fun in it. I would play it again. And that's a 2 badge with 1,500 experience. Let's see. We didn't really do a lot of damage from fires. Yeah, it's mostly HE shells that did all of our damage. So I'll see you guys in the next one.